damn it, Dale.
We've got the one and only, the man, the myth, and my big brother, Greg Glassman. Hey, it is great to see you, and I'm glad I got you before you're leaving the country. I noticed you shaved for this as opposed to the scruff look for Sevi.
Yeah, I'm leaving tomorrow without a razor.
Oh, really?
And so for no other reason, I'll get to come back to shave or get a haircut or do something.
Nice. Good for you. The European tour. I'm glad you're going. I wish I could join you out there.
I wish I could make that happen, and I can stay here.
Yeah. Make me go instead.
Yeah. Sorry, Dale.
I was wondering about that. You know, I know when you came back last time from a long trip, you were like, yikes. Like nobody needs a vacation more than a person who's just had one. Maggie
looked me in the eyes and said, I swear to God, we'll never do that ever again.
I know. That's why when you
said I cried real tears of joy. Now here we are again.
That's why when you said you were going.
We're doing it again, and we're also on our third last child.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, now you're doing it with double the baggage.
Yeah. But we've done this. We took Remington to 3 months, 4 months, whatever it was, to Costa Rica.
Oh, wow.
And we went to Bora Bora, Maggie pregnant with her and the other 4 kids.
She's a great baby though. She's unusually
amazing baby, and Maggie's an amazing mama, and the girls and Red are all a big help. It's pretty cool.
You've got them. You've got a pretty good crew for traveling with. They'll have fun too. They'll entertain themselves. And it's not Marrakesh. No camels this time. No,
We're doing all VRBO. No. This will be a no Four Seasons trip. We haven't had one of those in a long time.
Interesting. I wonder if that'll be.
For what a room costs at Four Seasons, and then I need some kind of suite that holds the kids as well as something for the nanny. At that same price point, you're getting a 15-bedroom home,
right
in the countryside, like Lake Como. I mean, it's really crazy what a good deal that is.
Yeah, I'm surprised. No problem booking those, like for the not being mean to Americans or anything.
It was. I worry about getting ripped off because we had a mishap once on a Florida Keys place years and years ago, but the owners have been really easy and went out of their way to call and want to get us at the airport.
Oh, nice. And it's not Mexico either. I mean, you're going to Europe.
Yeah.
I mean, it should be all right. Nothing crazy going on in Europe right now. I've been looking, but nothing, no elections, no strikes, none of that nonsense.
Yeah, I don't want to know.
I went through Italy one time, landed at Rome, and it was the craziest thing. They're like, okay, we're waiting, and we're changing flights. And then we're looking out on the tarmac, out the window, or just waiting. It's like everybody's bags are just out on the, away from, they're not on carriages or anything, just out like on the ground. And the baggage handlers union in Italy went on strike. And it was like, they just left people's bags everywhere. And the disruption to airline operations, we wound up sitting there for like 6 hours. But I couldn't believe, I was like, wait, they're allowed to do that? Like, you don't take them out and shoot them? You got guys here with guns. I see the Carbonari walking around, but.
How long ago was that?
Oh, this was in the 90s, I think. I think it was in the 90s. Yeah, mid-90s, in fact. Yep, 95-ish. And I was just like tripped. I'd never seen anything like that in my life, that they could just do that, like stop air travel, foreign travelers and all that. I'd never really thought about it. But it's an interesting thought on who can be unionized, who should be unionized. Should you be allowed to do that at international ports of entry to the country? Like, it's not a great look. It didn't make me look, I didn't think, wow, Italy's what the pinnacle of civilization or whatever. I was like, wow. It's like the garbage, the New York City trash strikes in the 70s.
So this ontological probability, the need for it, and it's a fiction. It's a fallacy.
Yeah.
It's what Jane's called the mind projection fallacy, because all probability is subjective, and it's done right. It's the rational measure of your uncertainty. But the ontological probability comes about because those that deny meaning of the probability of a hypothesis have defined probability as the uh, limit with infinite rolls or whatever it is you're doing, flips, and so they give it a physical, even though it's done that way, it's it's a priori, it's deductive as hell.
Yeah.
You know,
It's a mathematical derivation. It's saying that the dice, if rolled infinite times, would eventually would approach a limit where it's roughly about one, each one a sixth of the time.
yes.
But of course, that's not true if you've got a loaded dice. And and who knows what that means? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you've baked into the die the requirement that it has to come out 1 in 6 as you approach infinity.
They say that you have fair dice. And it's always on assuming of a fair coin or fair dice. And
Yeah.
the dice can't be fair.
It's got no feelings on the subject.
Yeah. But that assumption of a fair dice says that the limit is with infinite rolls approaches 1/6.
Right.
And if it doesn't do that, then the dice wasn't fair.
Right. You've established ahead of time what fair.
And it's something that nobody's going to do.
Right. Never be tested. It will never be tested. I'll tell you how I was tripping on this is I was trying to write about it and I was using cards as an example. And did you go through, is Rhett going through a phase with the card tricks? Did any of your kids do that? Any of them?
No, but little Avi, Sevi's kid does that.
Oh, does he? Yeah. And I was into that as a kid. And I remember there was a guy, I was at a party, a St. Patty's Day party in college. And somebody was like, oh, you got to see this guy, my brother-in-law, whatever. And he does all these tricks. He was in the Navy in the 70s. And this guy was amazing. He did a trick where he goes, pick any card, all that. I take it. I put it back in the deck. Nobody could possibly have seen it, right? And he puts it back in the deck. He doesn't shuffle, puts the cards back in the deck. And this is in the days of landlines. This is in the 80s. And then the phone rings in the house. I remember we're at a big party, St. Patty's Day party. Everybody's drinking. This guy's half in the bag. The phone rings and some woman answers, comes out and goes, is Dale here? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, you better get that. And I go, what? I go over, I pick up the phone and somebody goes, 6 of clubs. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, it was the most amazing trick I'd ever seen. And I was like, I couldn't believe it. And he tells me I paid $150 for that trick while I was on deployment on the Western Pacific in 1969, or you know what I mean? Like, and then I started like, wait, what? And he goes, look, I don't do it more than once. And I started realizing, he goes, he was handling cards. And I go, would anybody, like any of your friends, I go, when you play cards, are you cheating? He goes, when I played cards, it was very apparent very quickly that I could not be in a card game involving money and be allowed to deal. And so I was like tripping on it. He goes, yeah, he goes, because if I win the hand, everybody thinks I fucking stole it. I maneuvered the cards around. And so I was like, oh, and I realized that what you're doing with cards, like if you say, when you do all the odds with cards, the whole idea of a fair deal and all of that is all premised on like that none of us knows how to manipulate a deck of cards. You know what I mean? Like that we're all equally incompetent and that a shuffle is going to be an honest shuffle and not. And so your odds of getting any card aren't 1 in 52 or 4 in 52, or if it's an ace or whatever. It's if you've got a competent dealer, somebody knows hand on the deck of cards, you might be at 0. You're never going to get the card you need. And so there's, like the
Didn't Jane say something to the effect of if you could define a fair shuffle, it wouldn't be a fair shuffle?
Right. And then the other thing is it ties in with this really strange is like that notion of random systems, like random physical systems. Mm-hmm. Like there's nothing random going on in cards. I mean, even if you accepted Vegas uses, they use a shuffler that kind of riffle, a mechanical kind of thing. So the dealer doesn't touch it. But like the cards aren't passing through each other. You know what I mean? There's nothing random about that. That's a physical system, and there's a certain amount of things in there. I mean, it's limited. And so when people talk about random shuffles and random things, I'm like, how do they believe that? Where
What
does
would
that?
be interesting to do is to take a deck of cards, remove the plastic, pull them out, and substitute that by sleight of hand for what was thought to be a shuffle deck, and then to deal that out as poker hands. And so everyone's got these flushes and shit, right? And these
Yes.
crazy straights.
Right. And that's what, I mean, that's what the best, you know, the guys who are the best. I watched this guy, Jason LaDagna, and he might be the best I've ever seen. But he's like, yeah, I've been doing this 35 years. And they talk about card tracking. Like he does little tricks. It's almost like what you and I would do, like scales for the piano. He will roll dice and then get a number, and he'll put 4 dice, like a 1, a 3, a 2, and a 5, let's say. And then he'll just take a deck of cards and he just peels off and he goes, deals out 1, and then in front of each dice, 1, and then 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 1, 2. And every time it's the correct number. And so it's like he's showing you that a part of the way is like he'll tell you, he'll deal cards and be like, he'll shuffle a deck and then go, the ace of clubs is the 8th card down. And then he'll just go 1, 2, 3, 4, boom, there's the ace of clubs. And you're like, oh shit. Like that's not, you can't play cards with that guy. You know, but all of that.
I don't like magic. I like when he used to burn people for good magic.
Or cut people in half and then have screaming.
Yeah.
That's no good. Yeah, it's the diceness, the games of chance. It's funny how you could understand if you approached a New York City street vendor, a guy was doing 3-card Monte, you wouldn't think like, oh, that's random. And yet if you add in enough cards, you kind of like, you clearly know that guy's cheating. You know that the whole thing's a con. And yet somehow assume that what's going on in Vegas or anywhere else isn't. You know, which is, I like where did you look up that everything that you could measure in Vegas that would allow you to know what
I got that from Briggs.
Oh, really?
If you actually go to measure any parameter or its proxies, it's a felony.
Right.
They're bringing in a device that tests the density of the felt, the balance of the none of it, nothing. If it could conceivably be a factor physically, you're not allowed to measure it. Hey, it's fascinating to look at what's required of a roll and at what frequency the die are changed and just what goes into manufacturing them. There's some pretty good YouTube on that.
Oh, really?
The diamond shape protuberances that you have to bank off of eliminated all kinds of fancy play.
Oh, right. So you've got to throw them so they hit it because
they got to land in that vertical valley of felt and rubber pyramids, and then rebound off of that.
And then all of the
and then they're changed regularly.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they don't want it going dead. They don't
well,
want.
If you know something, you won't after that, and they're serial numbered.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they have a unique identifier on them.
And then they're just making their money on the fact that the payouts are less than what.
That's it.
The difference between what the payouts are and what the limit frequencies are of all of those rolls.
It's a brilliant model.
Not failing. I mean, as long as you stay in business, right? People can go on little short runs, but I mean, it's a volume thing.
It's amazing to me that it works. I don't have that gene.
Yeah, same.
My father did, and his mother did. His
really?
mother to a fault. I mean, grandma burned through millions of dollars playing poker.
Oh.
And I just don't know what the fun of that would be.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I would sweat. Like guys would like, hey, let's go to you could play single deck blackjack. When I was flying out of Yuma, we would go up, drive to the riverboat casinos, and I couldn't afford to spend more than $100. But just playing a hand, we'd play $1 a hand or whatever. But I would get sweaty in there, like over like a $3 hand. You know what I mean? I'm like, I can't see how people would do this. You know what I mean? The fear sweat where you're like, oh God, I can't. You know, like I don't have that. It makes me a little ill.
Kramer's good enough that he'd never have anything, but if he wanted to live at one of the shitty rooms in the casino and eat that fucking food and drink their drinks,
yeah,
he could probably do that just playing poker.
Yeah,
I mean, he'll play all night long and make $300
over the. And that's the other part about, cards and all that. That's funny too, is there's all kinds of other things present. If you're playing against people, like, do you have a tell? Like one of the great videos that runs around the internet is Andre Agassi saying after he beat the shit out of Boris Becker, and Becker was just downtrodden over it. And Becker told his wife or his girlfriend at the time that I don't know what it is. It's like, this guy's reading my mind. He knows where I'm going to serve. He's the best return man, but I mean, it's like he's reading my mind. And after he retired, Andre Agassi told him, "Hey man, listen, this is going to bother you, but when you throw the ball up, you stick your tongue out of your mouth. And if you're serving to the deuce court, if you stick your tongue to the left, it's coming out. And if it's coming down the middle." And so he had picked up his tell with his tongue in his mouth on the throw of the tennis ball, and he could read it every time where the guy was going to serve. He's just eating his lunch, and the guy had no idea why. And the guy even told his girlfriend, "I think he's reading my mind." It's like, yeah, he is. You've got to tell,
Yeah, that's interesting.
I'd be heartbroken to find that out after the fact. Can you imagine?
Yeah, like you get eyebrow twitches when you're bluffing.
Right. Like, you smile, you'll there's all kinds of things like that. When I did, and you probably saw this when you put us through that course, there's all these things you do when you're public speaking. You'll have all these tics and you're not even conscious of it.
Yeah.
And they record you and they're like, "Hey, stop clicking your pen." You're like, "I never click my pen." And they show like, "Go to the tape." And you're like, "Oh shit." Like I'm there I am clicking away,
The great thing about that course
What?
Was when Dave says, "They told me I'd come off arrogant. Can you believe that?" I go, "Man, they're good."
He's like, he's insulted, and you're like, "They're geniuses."
Yeah, I mean, they gave it a name.
Damn.
Pure, unbridled.
Oh, is that what they said?
Essence of arrogance. He is.
Oh my God. Oh, that's so good.
It's one of the things I love about him.
Yeah. How are they doing? How are things going at the games? I haven't been paying attention. Is that still
at the fitness plant?
Yeah, at the fitness.
I really don't know. Hey, people have a hard time understanding that I left the fitness industry while still at CrossFit and still the dominant player, half the branded gyms in the world, but we were in the health space.
Yep.
And I got that. Someone had said that CrossFit Health, they just told a bunch of stories, and that really upset Karin. But I wanted to share the Mespers, the stories that were told. Let me grab this.
Just get in the chat. Dun, 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 dun. Just told a bunch of stories. Yeah. You don't say.
And it was, Sarah Halberg and Zoe Harcombe and Jason Fung and Tim Noakes. And I mean, we had amazing people, Gary Taubes, smartest people in healthcare and globally so. And that got abandoned. And I was observing that we're the only commercial effort ever that tasked itself with the education on the care and feeding of your mitochondria. Now, I don't know if anyone's interested. It may be that nobody is, and that I wouldn't be surprised by that. But I do know that everyone ought to be. And I told Sevi the other day that we're like Weight Watchers, maybe in that we're certainly weight watching, but we're also diabetes watching, cancer watching, coronary artery disease watching, end-stage renal disease watching, all these things, obesity, diabetes, stroke, all of these things. The whole of chronic disease is mitochondria dysregulation driven. The metabolic syndrome is the problem is in the engine room. It's in
and additionally, as a bonus, we also picked up all the chronic diseases. As it turns out, the program, we picked up all the other chronic diseases. The ones I always loved that you picked it also includes drug addiction. You know, the chronic diseases include like alcoholism. And it turns out that CrossFit fixed that as well. You know, that's why we had such success in those communities as well. Even, you know, those might not be mitochondrial, but more behavioral, maybe, you know, but still, you know, fixed all of that shit. I can't. So they're not doing any of that stuff anymore, huh? No, Saudi's not interested in that.
No, you know, we don't. It might be that a new owner would be super interested. We'll see, but when you have someone that says, as I do and will again here, that I find it exceedingly probable that sugar is causing a most cancer, that doesn't make for good company in a venture capital group's portfolio. No one wants to be next to an organization that's making those kind of claims. You know, it's like you know, what snack wants RFK Jr. on its board?
Right. There no Nestle's.
Who let him in here? So I understand they don't have the intellectual chops to do it. I mean, we got Bob Kaplan, you know.
Yeah.
And Thomas Seyfried said he was the smartest kid he's had in 43 years of teaching.
Oh, damn. How's
that for a good endorsement? He was much of the research behind Taubes and Peter Attia and his understanding of, you know, he took Seyfried's graduate course in oncology, and Seyfried proclaims him the best student he's had in 43 years of teaching, and then a year and a half later, he co-authors a paper with Seyfried. Bob does.
Oh, he did? Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that he'd worked, that he and Seyfried had done work together.
He's a formidable authority on the metabolism of cancer.
Hey, just for the record, I'll say this here so that like we put a pin in the paper, but April 24th of 2025. But you told me this about sugar and cancer. Oh, my thing's out of focus. But you told me that this is not new for you. In fact, when you enlightened me as to this, when you popped my awareness, and I started like, oh my God, you were like, yeah, you start sounding like a lunatic. But you told me this a long time ago.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, long time ago, based on some of your own experience with getting people off the carbs and getting them into CrossFit and having remarkable results.
You know, there's crazy resistance to even recognizing the fact that cancer is a metabolic disease and not a genetic disease, that any genetic anomaly, mutation associated with cancer is the downstream effects of mitochondrial dysregulation. We can even reproduce the genetic defects by targeting mitochondria with reactive oxidative species. And so the nuclear transferase experiments tell me all I need to know.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that.
Here's the nature of the resistance and the importance of the resistance. If it's a genetic disease, it can't be sugar. If it's a metabolic disease, it'll take you about 20 minutes to figure out it's sugar.
Right. Where's that, Kevin?
That's the fucking. They have their finger in that crack in the dam, in the dike, and it's, dear God, it's got to be genetic. And the problem is it metabolic? Well, like, where does that happen? I'd be in the mitochondria. Oh, something's wrong with the mitochondria. What doesn't mitochondria like? Well, reactive oxidative species. In fact, the mechanisms by which sugar creates metabolic syndrome by assaulting the mitochondria are there's a multitude of mechanisms. It's like the number of ways your life can go bad if you're a heroin addict. It's almost uncatalogable, right? And you're going to tell me but cancer isn't one of those. Shut up.
Right. And the other thing is, of course, on the back end, like everybody knows after post Warburg, you know, the Warburg effect and how PET scans work and all that is you drink a radioactive sugar and the cancer, you know, far preferentially gobbles it.
Priority.
Right. It gets priority on thinking. And so you would think like the initial response would be like, huh, cancer is a complete sugar hog. Maybe we should not eat sugar, like see what that does. And
I can walk you through published literature that says that sugar will cause metabolic syndrome, and so it's excess dietary sugar can cause metabolic syndrome, and metabolic syndrome can cause obesity. And we know that obesity is the largest risk factor for cancer,
right.
but it's a myth that sugar causes cancer.
Right.
And still, metabolic syndrome connection to cancer needs to be studied absent obesity, because it still happens.
Yep.
It's the efforts you have to make to hide something. This is very much like if you look at I don't know if it's been improved, but it was a gem, and I have one of the originals, but it's the Wikipedia article on hyperglycemia. And what they say is that when people eat too many calories, they become obese, and those that are genetically cursed will develop diabetes.
Oh.
And the diabetes exacerbates, causes further insulin resistance. And
all backward, everything backwards.
And therefore, it's crazy. They have a spire balanced on its point.
It's that South Park at the pyramid.
And this is what you have to do when someone says, look, sugar's the problem here. There's too much in the blood. And what we can't do is admit that it came in through the pie hole.
Right. Or accumulates because of that.
And I've tried to read that to intelligent friends in our experts and physicians. Man, I can't get a couple of lines in there. They're like, that's wrong. And I go, that's why I'm reading it to you. Be quiet. It gets worse. It's really an amazing bit of work.
Right. Like, who's writing that? How could you?
It's genius.
I mean,
it's genius.
It's like what you said about, I remember when we were looking at the recommendations, the daily recommendations for carbohydrates. I forget what it was. Might have been the Gatorade thing. And it was like, what's their daily? It was like 200 grams of carbohydrates. I remember you looked at that and went, nobody derived that empirically. Like nobody put a bunch of people on like 200 carbs a day, and was like, let's see what happens, 200 grams of carbs a day. I was like, oh man.
Do you remember that we found the bullshit physiology on the hyperhydration thing?
Yeah.
And you could make any claim and then say and say something true.
Oh yes. The disjunction where it's this.
Right.
Yeah.
I could take any fabrication and add some, or today's Tuesdays or whatever day it is, and now it's true.
Right. Which is an interesting. It's kind of a weird thing, like that you can structure a sentence that way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It goes to that thing we've been talking about how you can have statements that have logical values, but they're nonsense. They're meaningless.
Identical truth value, logical value,
right,
with different meaning.
I'm digging into your if P. You're a Stanford guy right now. If P then Q
book, isn't it?
Yeah, it's good. It starts not where I thought it was. It starts kind of with just sentence structure, just the mere structure of a conditional in a sentence, and how it's a great book.
It's a tough chew.
For sure. It's thick. Yeah. There's a lot happening on every page.
For sure.
And the same thing, you're putting me through you got me going through a course what was that one? Geometry isn't
that beautiful?
Oh yeah. He tells you get a T-square and get a compass and get ready, like at the beginning of the book.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just getting started into that. Of course, in all my spare time.
That reminds me of something that I wanted to share with you.
Cool. Chuck it in the comment. Jump it in the chat.
It was, I can send it in a text.
Yeah, send it in that chat. Drop it in the chat.
Okay. This thing. Copy. Bam. And paste. It's an Instagram link. Can you show?
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Oh, that's fascinating. Wow. It's kind of like tech drawing, but I mean, with
she teaches a course.
Wow.
And I'm like, well, I'd take that. Maybe even Riley, my 11-year-old, she would.
Oh yeah. I'll tell you, that's amazing. Just using string.
Yeah. The pin is at the vanishing point, and parallel lines need to point to that.
Wow, look at that. Oh, I gotta tell you, I suffered through tech drawing. Did you have to take that? You must.
And, I struggled with drafting, even though I got reasonable marks, but it took me longer than anyone else. I had some kind of OCD thing for perfection.
I had a teacher who was
where I'd erase something, I'd do a new one.
Right. And we, doing projections like this a lot. I mean, this is really a lot of, that's amazing. That is absolutely incredible.
Look at the fisheye view. Everything radial to the center.
Oh, wow. Wow. Oh, I'd want to take that course too.
Right.
Oh,
it's
that's
an architect.
Yeah. Oh, I would take that in a heartbeat. I wonder
I knew you would. I should have sent it to you before, but I just found it yesterday.
Wow. It's funny because I would love to go back. One of the courses I struggled with in engineering, we had to take, this is in the late 80s, we had to take mechanical drawing, and that's the hardest I've ever worked at anything, and I got a D. The teacher was like, you suck at this, and I'm going to give you a D just because you tried really, really hard, but you should know that I know that you suck. And I was like, all right, thank you.
You remember James Thurber in the biology class?
That's one of my favorite ones ever. You got to tell that.
Me too. So Thurber's, he's in biology, and I think he's looking at a paramecium under the microscope or something. And he thinks he's doing a pretty good job. He's looking and drawing and looking and drawing. Then the teacher comes up and goes, "You fool, you've drawn your eye." He was drawing the reflection of his eye.
Hey, I like that at least he drew a good enough representation of his eyeball that the teacher picked up.
Knew exactly what that was.
That he fucked up, didn't have his eye right on the microscope. But mine probably would have been so bad you wouldn't have been able to tell. That was my problem.
Humorist of the first order.
Yeah. James Thurber.
That kind of shit doesn't age. No. Hey, you don't see written humor like you used to. Do you know that?
It feels like culture's dying. I got to be honest with you. A lot of that stuff's gone.
Yeah, and that.
Right. I mean, I know.
Bill Grunler called on Sevy's show the other day, and the discussion came to a point where I was like, look, when we started in 2000, the country was a very different place than it was in 2020 at my ouster. And I think that you would find that this was peak transition in the only decline in cognitive capacity of Americans in our history. The number of kids that could read plummeted. You know what I saw? It says, I think it was 7% of publicly educated seniors could correctly alphabetize 7 words. 7% could correctly alphabetize 7 words. Something like only 15% could find a word in a dictionary without going page by page.
Oh, wow.
Now, that's, I get the problem there. It's a computer thing for sure. but when YOUR and YOU apostrophe RE and YOUR, when all these become UR, some effectiveness in communication is potentially lost. And I see it all the time. There's a phenomenon going around now with Gen Zers, and I call it yeah girls. And so ask me a question. Go ahead, anything.
What time is it?
Yeah, no. It's 12:17. Are you gonna go to the mall today? Yeah, no. It's so weird. Or they'll just do a group of girls will just sit around, yeah. They just yeah. It's a comma.
Yeah.
Or a period.
Yes.
Or an ellipsis. Yeah. Or introduction to another salutation.
You know what I'm reminded of is when you first told me when we went down this probability and all this stuff, you pointed me to Claude Shannon, information theory.
Yeah.
And Shannon talks about information as having entropy. And so when you talk about things like that, like where we are losing words that have different meanings because they're homonyms or whatever, and that's all going away and turning into the two letters YR, all I can think about is at the time you told me that information had entropy, I was like, that makes no sense. Now I completely get it. Like, yeah, it does.
Yeah, it's a good point.
I mean, there's like, yeah, there's information being lost. And it makes me wonder, like, how long do the bridges keep holding? How long do the rockets keep going? You know what I mean? Like, it's a concerning thing.
I saw Jonathan Turley speaking about the rapid erosion of regard for free speech in Europe, and that it was pervasive there, and it was instructive to look at who the American allies of that effort are. And one of them, very, very prominent, is Hillary Clinton. And she says we're going to lose the whole ball of wax by not censoring.
Yeah.
That the civilization itself, America, will be doomed because of people like Trump that are allowed to say whatever they want and his supporters.
Yeah, I remember that quote. I mean, it's an amazing thought. It does tie up nicely with your analogy about the truth is like a beach ball.
Yeah.
You know, the effort that it takes to hold it underwater. Like, yeah, that's the censorship, you know.
Eventually.
We're getting there now. I mean, it's interesting to think, hey, in our lives, right, how much has changed in just the recent, like in the last months, even really with Trump. Like now it just seems like you can, people can say things that, I'm not getting blocked. Like there's, it's so much different. I mean, it's not perfect by any stretch, for sure. But what a difference in terms of where we were headed. Like, can you imagine if it had gone the other direction?
I just assumed it was and had. And I also feel that when Trump's done, we'll get right back on course.
That's what I wonder about is where are we in, we're not 90 days in, but I mean, okay, let's look long-term. What happens in 28? Is JD the next guy or no?
I would hope so.
Yeah, I would too. Notwithstanding all the memes of him with a giant childlike fat head, but I don't know how he's like, he seems to me to be, the natural heir, you would think, you would hope.
Yeah, I thought he was really good at the convention.
Yeah,
I was very impressed with him.
Yeah, he's the real deal. I think he was the valedictorian of his Yale Law School class.
I think so too.
I think he was number one, which is that's no small thing at Yale. Whatever else,
something. There's not three reporters that could do anything like that. If they are, they work at Commentary or National Review or something.
Right. Yeah, I bet there aren't actually. I bet there's nobody who can handle him. And I think Vivek was his classmate. I think they were classmates. I think I looked that up, in fact. Like their wives are friends and some shit. So they're peers. So that all bodes well. I mean, it gives me some hope. I'll say this. In many ways, all this talk about Greenland, all this crazy shit, in some ways makes me think at least somebody's talking about things outside of what has been sort of the post-war acceptable level of discourse. You know, like even if the ideas are crazy, at least somebody's saying something that's not just the same pablum. You know what I mean? If you're like, oh, that's nuts. Why would we ever take, annex Canada? You know what I mean? Or whatever. Like as crazy as that sounds, like I'm just glad for something that's not the post, like it's not the same as George Will and what's sort of been the establishment, and Gore Vidal kind of even on either side. Like that it seems to me we're in a different era now. We're in a post, like all of that kind of frame, and we'll see what falls out of it. But I don't know.
It's the first, I think, true populist that the machine rejected, and it didn't matter. The Republicans didn't want Trump,
Right.
but
Neither party.
And now you're not gonna survive being a Republican without supporting him. I think that's all for the better.
Yeah, I agree. It's a completely different, like you said, in 20 years, we've had all these things change, but did you ever imagine Trump's fundamentally a Democrat. Most of what's around him were all moderate Democrats when, you and I were following politics. I mean, Trump was a moderate Democrat in New York, and, he's got Tulsi. RFK Jr. is a legacy Kennedy Democrat. I mean, who's not a Democrat in his orbit, really, fundamentally?
I wonder how much his politics and policies differ from, say, like a Henry Jackson. Henry Scoop Jackson, remember him?
Yeah, or even, Douglas Murray is on tour talking about standards of the non-arc. Yeah, I know. Douglas Murray's making a fool of himself, just made a fool of himself on Rogan.
What was he doing?
Yeah, the thing he's running into right now is, hey, he's still in that post-Cold War kind of neocon, world view of we need to get involved in more wars. And we don't have the military for it anymore. We've been at it for a long time. People forget that shit takes a toll, and like we don't have the military. We're not the military we were.
Let me tell you my view. I think Putin needs to be stopped, and I think that's very important. And I don't want to spare a single American life to do that, nor spend any of our money. Right. He needs to be stopped. Right. And if France and Sweden and if the NATO countries can't get together and stop them, I whether they can, will, or won't, I don't have any interest in another generation of American boys dying to keep Europe free again.
Right.
This Europe does wars.
Yes, that place is just soaked in the blood of its sons.
And if I think the best chance that we have of stopping Putin is if the French and the Germans and the Brits know that we're not coming.
Right. And absolutely, in many ways, they have to be cut from the tit.
Yeah, and what I want them to know is that their very existence is threatened.
Right. They should treat it accordingly.
Yeah, and I would also the intermediate range Pershing kind of missiles that we have there.
Yeah,
I would deed them to them.
Right. You guys keep them. We're not going to float them back.
Because you know what? We don't need to do that to Nicaragua, or they don't only get a 1,500-mile range or whatever it is. Right. So they're almost of no use to us. And then I would triple down on the Monroe Doctrine.
That seems to be happening, by the way.
And I would tell the Chinese and the Russians, time to go to your shitty, spoiled half of the world.
Right.
You're not allowed to have influence here in the Western Hemisphere.
And by the way, you said that a while ago, and then I look at what Trump's doing and all the saber rattling down on the Panama Canal and all that. Yeah. And I'm like, wow. Like I saw Hegseth. I don't know if you followed that, man. That was gangster shit. Hegseth went down there. There was all this fighting in the press, and Trump was like, hey, we're getting treated shitty on the canal. The Chinese are building. They've got a Chinese company that owns a big chunk of it down there. And I was watching all that. Heggs went down there and was like, yeah, we're reopening our jungle warfare training center, which hasn't been opened in like, they closed that down decades ago. He's like, yeah, we're reopening that where we train jungle warfare. And the next thing you know, the Panamanian president was like, oh, it turns out that the Hong Kong company they did not properly renew their lease or, whatever. I was like, okay, I see. But I mean, it's, the Panama Canal, like, I feel the same way, just what you said about Europe. I feel the same way about us. Like, Europe doesn't need to give a shit about the Panama Canal. I mean, that's fundamentally our problem, And so like, you don't see NATO going, oh, can we help you with the Panama Canal? Like if they were, that's our problem. That's our backyard. And so I'm 100% with you. And I think
people miss that proper governance gives consideration to public health facts. I don't let the public health people govern us. Right. And the same thing is that the tariffs and reacting to China is part of a security strategy of which economic considerations are a subset, a factor, an element. Right. And if we need to live at a lower standard of living to stop China from hanging us with the rope they sold us, then I would do so. The idea that they make medicines that would be essential for our use in time of war is insanity.
Yeah, I can't.
And if I have to pay 10 times more for a penicillin pill because it was made here, then so be it. What I don't want to do is go to war with a country that's making my drugs. Right. We are at war with a country making our drugs.
Yeah, for sure.
And I feel that way about the rare earth metals and mining. I feel that way about the chip industry. I get what the stakes are. I see what they're doing.
Right.
And I wouldn't let them do it. It's not, we have so much, like 60% of the shit on Amazon comes from China.
Yep.
It's almost all garbage. Okay. Yep. We've got this garbage habit that we're going to use to build the world's strongest navy and army to destroy us.
Right.
So that we can have trinkets. Nah, I don't think we should be. I'll tell you another thing. Your iPhone's made with slave labor at a bunch of steps along the way.
Right.
What makes that okay?
Right. Yeah, I would get rid of it to have the tracking device that
it needs to be made here with American hands. And what will that do to the cost? Well, geez, you're comparing it to the cost of slave labor. It would probably be more.
Right. So in the same way that picking cotton got a little more expensive post-Civil War.
Yes, so what?
Right. We'll innovate around it, and if we can't, then it'll go the way of the dodo, and it will deserve it.
We're not going to live there's not going to be a society where everyone's a computer tech and no one knows how to fix a car.
Right. I can't get past that like, and that was sold kind of at the central planning of education idea that we're going to be living in an information economy. It's like, well, what, is nobody going to bend steel? You know what I mean? Nobody's going to be using rebar in this information future. What are we going to be living in? Yeah, I would send my kids to trade schools.
Hey, new orders in American factories is rising.
Oh, really?
Yep. And China's got containers stacked up to the heavens now.
Oh,
for shit that's not moving. It's creating a real problem. The advantage they have over us is that they're willing to do anything to their people to maintain power, and here you'd lose it. Trump has to bow to the markets.
Right.
And they'd have no problem starving half their population.
Yeah, did it once.
That was a requirement to hold in power.
Yeah, did it once. Which is, hey, you remember the trip we went on, I was tripped out even when I went there, but after you sent me, Brian, all of us over there, and we asked Leong, it was interesting that he had, like, everybody there still had a relative, like a cultural memory of someone they knew had starved to death in the in one of Mao's, great leap forward kind of, and that's a trippy thing. Like starving to death is not a cool way to go. And that there was still like a cultural memory because like, they starved like 50 million people, however many starved to death, I didn't know that, it was the same guy. They did use the same guy the Russians did. It was Trofim Lysenko. So he was part of 2 mass starvations, not just one. He did the Russians, and then the Chinese adopted his people's science. That was he rejected like Mendeleev kind of, understanding,
like our Fisher and Popper.
Yes. Yes. Right. That's the funny thing about it. It's the first thing I think of when I read that. I'm like, how can people not get that? How can they not? Like if you're dealing with the probability of the data, you're looking at the wrong end of the microscope. Oh,
this is a fun topic.
It's everywhere now. I can't see it everywhere. I think you've turned me insane. I can't look anywhere and not see it.
When I come back from Europe, I want to do a little gathering and do a run through of a tale of two sciences, and I want you to come out for that.
Yeah, of course.
We'll do it in the gym next door, which is coming around leaps and bounds.
Oh, I know. I can't wait. That's going to be done first, huh? On your that'll be the first thing fully complete.
Yeah, there's a real need to on a rectangular lot that's much deeper than it is wide. You kind of want to build from back to front.
I love that. That's a great setup.
So they're building their way out to the street.
Oh,
drywall's going up now. Almost all the doors and windows are in, most of them. Yeah, it's pretty impressive.
Wow, I wasn't there that long ago, and I was there like just a month ago.
You know what they're going to do? They're going to have the outside stuccoed and the inside drywall, and then they're going to, and doors and windows, and they're going to turn on the AC and finish inside.
Right, in time, just in time for when it's 100.
I'm totally okay with that.
Yeah, they have to. I mean, can you imagine doing that? Just open in July and whatever in June in Phoenix. I mean, oh God,
it's amazing.
Damn it, Dale.